We believe that there is hope for Nigeria. We believe that there is a beaming hope in Nigeria's security. This is Spotlight Africa coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakoran, and I am Uyai Anyekan. Top of our reports this evening, South Africa Army to send 10,000 troops to flood zones. Libya oil production hit amid worsening protest. Kenyan teachers call to bring back caning. Details of the stories and more in a moment. There's been a rather comic handling on waste management. A Spider-Man. He does whatever a street cleaner can. According to World Bank, waste generation rates are rising. In 2016, the world's cities generated over 2 billion tons of solid waste, amounting to a footprint of 0.74 kilograms per person per day. Much of this waste ends up on the streets, and in Nigeria, an environmentalist, Jonathan Olakinle, dresses up as a Marvel comic superhero, Spider-Man, to help clean up the Osogbo streets. Joint West African Force says more than 100 insurgents killed in recent week. As a joint military force in Nigeria, Niger and Cameroon said on Sunday it had killed more than 100 Islamist insurgents, including 10 commanders, in the past few weeks, as it intensifies a ground and air offensive in the Lake Chad region. Boko Haram fighters and its splinter Islamic State West Africa Province ISWAP group have for more than a decade battled the Nigerian army in a conflict that has sucked in neighboring states. A joint military force from Nigeria, Niger and Cameroon said on Sunday it had killed more than 100 Islamic insurgents, including 10 commanders in the past few weeks. Multinational Joint Task Force spokesman Colonel Mohammed Doe said troops had ventured deep into enclaves controlled by insurgents in the Lake Chad area and recovered several weapons, food and illicit drugs. Within the period of this operation, well over 100 terrorists have been neutralized, including over top 10 commanders, following intelligence-driven lethal airstrikes in the Lake Chad island by the combined air task forces, Doe said. The Islamic insurgency is concentrated in the northeast of Nigeria and has left thousands dead while driving millions from their homes into camps for internally displaced persons. Nigeria received a boost after the United States last week approved a nearly $1 billion weapon sale. U.S. lawmakers had put a hold on the deal over concerns about possible human rights abuses by the Nigerian government. Thankfully, Boko Haram has been on the back foot since the death of its leader Abubakar Shekau last year in May, during a battle with the rival ISWAP. Nigeria says thousands of Boko Haram fighters and their families have surrendered since last year. More than 440 people have died, and the search is continuing for 63 more people who are still missing. Officials describe the floods as one of the worst to ever hit the province. South African military says it is deploying more than 10,000 troops to help with relief and rescue operations following the devastating floods that swept through parts of KwaZulu-Natal province last week. KwaZulu-Natal province Premier Shile Zakala said nearly 4,000 homes were destroyed and more than 8,000 were damaged, most in the coastal city of Durban and its surrounding areas. Reports say sniffer dogs are being used to find bodies. Both the police and army are involved in the search effort, with more bodies recovered. In a statement, the South African National Defence Force said its troop would bolster search and rescue operations as well as assist in transporting aid to victims. He also added that the army plumbers and electricians would also work in areas that have been without water and electricity for a week. Meanwhile, government is under pressure in South Africa to rebuild roads destroyed in the floods. But South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has said the government will spare no expense to rebuild the infrastructure and assist all affected families. Weather experts have said that climate change may be contributing to the changing patterns and making such extreme events more frequent. Experts say the rainfall has since eased, but that the amount of rain which fell last Monday was equal to about 75% of South Africa's average annual precipitation. The weather system which triggered the flood led to excess of 300 millimeter of rainfall being dumped over a 24-hour period on the 11th of April. Meanwhile, some residents have blamed the state of the local infrastructure for the disaster, citing a lack of progress in improving drainage systems as well as strengthening roads and poorly built housing for the floods. But Durban's Mayor Moglisi Kaunda has rejected suggestions that the city's drainage infrastructure is to be blamed. Adding to some of the probable reasons for the flood, the Durban area population expanded after the end of the apartheid system in the 90s. Before that, residents within the city had been restricted to the whites only. Between 1996 and 2001, official data shows the population within the municipality increased by 2.3% over the 5-year period. But the rate of population growth then slowed as the city continued to expand. The developments put pressure on the existing infrastructure, which has failed to keep up. Gina Zeroville, an expert on climate change adaptation from the University of Cape Town, says the authorities have been trying to address some of the challenges posed by the risk of climate change. But she says more resources are needed, given the area's old and failing infrastructure and the new challenges posed by more extreme weather. We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we will bring you more stories inside Africa. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Away from all of the other stories, South Africa's power company Eskom has expanded its planned nationwide electricity outage after further breakdowns in its generating plant. The state utility firm said it was implementing stage 4 load shedding or scheduled blackouts after it lost 4,000 megawatts following the loss of 2 power units. Regretfully, Eskom has just been forced to implement stage 4 load shedding at 7:20 following Majuba Unit 5 and Tutuka Unit 4 tripping. Meanwhile, Eskom on Sunday announced stage 2 load shedding when it lost 2,000 megawatts of power supply after the tripping of other generating units. Reports say poor maintenance, rising costs, falling revenues, crumbling infrastructure, corruption and mismanagement have in the past been blamed for South Africa's energy crisis. Meanwhile, Libya's National Oil Corporation says that a wave of protests affecting the energy sector are likely to get worse. At least 4 separate groups have stopped production at oil fields and energy facilities across the country. The protesters want Libya's Tripoli-based Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Deiba to hand power to a rival government led by Fatih Bashagha, which was formed last month. The two governments have been competing for power since Libya's parliament elected Bashagha Prime Minister. In the meantime, a number of Kenyan teachers say corporal punishment should be allowed in classrooms again so that they can be tougher on pupils who misbehave. Kenya outlawed corporal punishment in schools in 2001, which makes the Children's Act protects children from all forms of abuse, but some secondary school head teachers say the ban undermines their authority in schools. Meanwhile, several government secondary schools were set to alight last year, with many of the incidents blamed on students. In February, Education Minister George Magoha warned teachers against caning learners in schools, but had previously hinted at a change in policy to deal with rising cases of indiscipline in Kenyan schools. Elsewhere, dozens of young Ethiopian men continue to gather at the Russian embassy in the capital, Addis Ababa, today following rumors of soldiers being recruited to fight in the war in Ukraine. But the embassy spokeswoman Maria Cherukina said no recruitment was being carried out in Ethiopia. She said the crowd was showing solidarity with Russia. Meanwhile, many of the Ethiopians at the embassy were seen carrying their personal documents. A young man waiting at the entrance told newsmen that he was looking for a good salary as a soldier or to be hired in any other job available. It could be recalled that Ethiopia was among countries that missed a UN session to vote on a resolution on the Russian invasion in Ukraine. In another development, the Central African Republic Special Criminal Court is due to hear its first trial today, 7 years after it was formed. The hybrid court, staffed by both international and Central African judges and prosecutors, was set up to investigate war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in the past 2 decades. The court's in Bangu has been praised by some as a model of justice in a country blighted by decades of civil war. Others have cast doubt on its effectiveness. Meanwhile, the defendants in Tuesday's trials are members of the 3R, one of the most powerful armed groups in the country. They are accused of massacring dozens of people in the northwest of the country. Angela Okutoye, Kenya's rising tennis star. Could this be the next Serena Williams for African sport? An 18-year-old Angela Okutoye is vying for the top spot as Africa's Queen of Tennis. Reports say Okutoye is inspired by the great Serena Williams. The routes into early tennis, which has not been easy, but that Angela was now looking towards beating out the competition for her next Grand Slam win. It could be recalled that in January 2022, she was the only African to win a match at the Australian Open's Junior Championships, as well as being the first Kenyan woman to win any Grand Slam match. Away from that, Egypt's Public Prosecution Office has ruled that the death of a prominent government critic was not the result of any crime. Supporters of Ayman Haddoud say he was subject to ill treatment by police after what they describe as his forced disappearance. Haddoud died in a government-run psychiatric hospital in March, but his body was not handed over to relatives until earlier this month. The Egyptian Prosecution Office said a post-mortem revealed that Haddoud had died from a chronic heart condition and that there were no signs of violence or resistance. In Nigeria, for more than 6 centuries, a vast area of land in the historic city of Kano in northern Nigeria has been home to dye pits, where beautiful fabrics are produced using ancient techniques. The materials dyed are a signature deep blue color. They have long been sold across Africa and the Middle East, but many are worried that the industry is now at risk. This is because the young generation do not want to be joined with the dying folks. Baba Mohammed complains as he squats near a white pit filled with a murky indigo-colored liquid. The 95-year-old, who is a veteran dyer, worries that he may be one of the last people to perform the ancient ritual, as young people have more modern taste. He added that they prefer to go into business even when they like to design the fabrics but not dyeing them. The Kofa Mata dye pit, established at the turn of the 16th century, were once a source of livelihood for thousands of local people. The unique designs of fabrics are usually created by women who twist and dye the material in their homes into different shapes to produce the patterns. The dyed fabrics are then handed over to the dyers. Kano City is an important economic hub for northern Nigeria and was crucial in part of the trans-Saharan trade in pre-colonial times. Historians talk of how Tuaregs, the so-called blue men of the desert, named after the striking color of their clothes, used to visit the ancient city. There they traded camels and dates to get their hands on the vibrantly dyed fabrics. The appeal of Kofa Mata fabrics was largely down to the locally sourced and natural ingredients used to dye the clothes. To this day, dyers say that they avoid artificial ingredients and instead rely on things like the local indigo plants, which gives the material its color. Also, it is said that insecurity threatens the recent years in the ancient tradition. They've been battling with myriad of threats. One is Boko Haram insurgency, which meant that customers are scarce, especially those traveling through the northeast of Nigeria, where the Islamist militants are active. It has also had an impact on the coming of foreigners to get the materials. On our Spotlight Africa, and today we have the historic Burna Boy. He becomes the first Nigerian to sell out Accra Arena. Damini Ebonluwa Ogulu, Grammy Award winner, popularly known as Burna Boy, has become the first Nigerian artist to sell out all tickets at Accra Arena, a 20,300 capacity event center in Paris, France. He also becomes the first Nigerian to sell out the venue twice in his career. The dancehall artist delivered an energetic performance, playing some of his hit songs including Ye, to the delight of music lovers at the Space Drift concert. Others who have performed on the big stage are creative pop stars including Jay-Z, Beyonce, Bruno Mars, Rihanna, Drake, and others. This makes it the fourth concert the popular music act has performed this year. He had recently performed to sell out crowds in Dublin, Geneva, and Manchester respectively. This is said to be a great step placing the African music industry on the world map of music.